The FIFA World Cup is about to change forever, and most fans don't realize just how big this change actually is. For decades, the World Cup followed a format that felt familiar. 32 teams entered the tournament, 8 groups were formed, and the best teams advanced through the knockout rounds until one nation lifted the trophy. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Then, FIFA decided to completely redesign the biggest tournament in football. Starting with the 2026 World Cup, the competition will expand from 32 teams to 48 teams, making it the largest World Cup in history. At first, that sounds like great news. More teams means more countries get a chance to qualify. More fans can support their nation on football's biggest stage, and more players get the opportunity to experience a World Cup. In theory, it makes football more global and inclusive. But here's where it gets interesting. Adding 16 extra teams doesn't just make the tournament bigger, it changes almost everything. FIFA had to redesign the entire structure of the competition. Instead of 8 groups of 4 teams, the tournament will now feature 12 groups of 4. Every team will still play 3 group stage matches, but now the top 2 teams from each group will advance along with the 8 best third-place teams. This sounds simple, until you realize teams will be competing, not only against the opponents in their group, but also against teams in completely different groups for those final qualification spots. Suddenly, goal difference, goals scored, and other tiebreakers become even more important. You know the type of situation where fans need calculators, and commentators spend 20 minutes explaining different qualification scenarios. That's likely to happen much more often. Then comes the knockout stage, and this is where the scale of the tournament becomes truly massive. Previous World Cups featured 64 matches. The 2026 World Cup will feature 104 matches. Think about that for a second. That's 40 additional games. It's almost like adding another mini tournament inside the tournament. For fans, more football sounds amazing. For players, however, it means more physical demands, more travel, and more pressure. Speaking of travel, another historic change is happening in 2026. For the first time ever, the World Cup will be hosted across 3 countries: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Never before has the tournament been spread across so many cities and such a huge geographic area. Some teams could travel thousands of miles between matches. That's exciting from a global perspective, but it also creates logistical challenges that previous tournaments rarely faced. So why did FIFA make these changes? Officially, FIFA says the goal is to grow the game and give more nations a chance to participate. And to be fair, there is some truth to that. Many regions around the world have improved dramatically in football quality over the last few decades. Countries that once had almost no chance of qualifying now have a realistic opportunity. More representation means more stories, more passionate fan bases, and potentially more surprises. But there is another reason that many people point to: money. More teams means more matches. More matches means more tickets sold, more television broadcasts, more sponsorship deals, and more advertising revenue. The World Cup is already one of the most watched sporting events on the planet, and expanding it makes the business even bigger. Not everyone is convinced this is a good thing. Critics argue that adding more teams could lower the overall quality of the tournament and create more one-sided matches. Supporters argue the exact opposite. They believe more teams will create more opportunities for underdog stories and unforgettable moments. After all, football history is filled with surprises that nobody expected. That's what makes the sport so popular. The biggest teams don't always win, and the smallest nations sometimes produce the biggest shocks. Ultimately, FIFA isn't just changing the number of teams, it's changing the entire identity of the World Cup. The 2026 tournament will be bigger, longer, more global, and more ambitious than anything we've seen before. Whether it becomes a brilliant success or a controversial experiment remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: when the first match kicks off in 2026, fans won't just be watching another World Cup. They'll be watching the beginning of a completely new era in football history.